Hello students, if you're watching this video, you're probably interested in ways to correct your Module 3 Lessons 1 through 13. It was a checkpoint over integers, opposites, absolute value. Again, if you got a score of 20 over 20, you can put it up here, put your name on it, and turn it in. If you did not get a 20 out of 20, it is helpful if you could put the score up here for us. And then we'll go ahead and get started once you're ready. Again, to get full credit, you have to put in a correct answer and reflect. Reflection should not be I guessed or I don't know. You should try to reflect on what do you think you did the first time? Were you thinking of a different definition? Were you thinking of a different operation of how to solve it? So give us an insight of why you might have missed it. But again, we prefer that you not put I guessed because we want you to slow down and take your time. So the first question says define what is an integer. And I don't want to give you the answer, so make sure that you pick the most specific definition and make sure that you refer to lesson 6 in the notes. It was a first page. You drew a model that had some circles on it, kind of looked like a rainbow in my notes. Mrs. Gertis did that lesson with you. So lesson 6 will talk to you about integers. Number 2 says give an example of an integer. So again, you should think about the definition that you had. And then a non-integer. It could be one that was on the quiz, or you can make up new ones. You can give us a couple examples if you want. But again, refer to lesson 6 with that model that we drew with the circles. Number 3, while graphing these numbers with these values, -5, 15, 0, 35, -10, you want to come up with the best scale. That was the key word because there was other ones that the scale would work, but we're looking for the best one. So what would include most of these or all of these numbers? And also think of multiples, or what would you count by? So that would be your best scale would be your correct answer and then why you think you might have missed it. Number 4, does each word represent a positive or negative value? That was one that I remember recording in lesson 2. So you could put positive or negative, a P or an N for your answers, or you could put a plus sign or a minus. We would know what you mean. But to get full credit, you must give an example over here. So for example, deposit, that might be something that you would do at a bank. So you would explain that over here, or withdrawal, debit, gain. So if you give us an example of what that vocabulary means, cluing in that it is positive or negative. And then again, there's a reflection piece at the bottom. On number 5, just make sure that you read careful which of these integers, so you could just put an X or a check or a yes, no, is the opposite of 10. So some of you might have missed that it said opposite of the opposite. The next one, opposite of a gain, so you got to think about what that word means, and the opposite of 10. Again, reflect. On 6 and 7, they were both about vertical number lines. So remember, a vertical number line goes from the sky to the ground. Also, I would often tell my students that horizontal lines have the line going through the middle, and vertical lines, if you were to fold up, it would make a straight line. So keep that in mind as you think about vertical and horizontal. Remember when you're describing on a vertical line that you must include the direction. So in this case, are you going above or below? If it was horizontal, are you going left or right from where you started? So think about what this line here in the middle is, and that will give you the correct answer, and then reflect. The highest point, that would be like the greatest value, the one that's farthest from 0, but a positive value. The next one, it might be helpful for you to put on a horizontal number line. The numbers that are farthest from 0 would be ordered first. So if you were to put these in order, you want to think about the ones that are farthest from 0 and the negative, and then you would move this way. Again, there might be some farther from 0 this way, so you want to start with the negative and list it going across. We talked about this with inequality. So you could put commas in, or you could put less than signs in. That's up to you. Number 9, speaking of those inequality statements, 14 is greater than 10. So this is a less than symbol. The smaller end is pointing to the less, and the bigger end is pointing to the greater number. This is greater, so it's going to the greater number, and this would be equal. So go ahead and write out your number sentence, including the correct symbol. Number 10, think of a real-world example for those numbers. So think about -6 and -5.5. If it confuses you on a number line, and again, you could draw the number line, horizontal or vertical, or you think of those real-world examples. I always think about temperature when I think about negatives, or money. Which one would you rather, owe someone? Or temperature, which one is colder, which one is warmer, which one's closer to 0? Absolute value was the last page. Remember that absolute value is the distance from 0. So it doesn't matter if it's negative or positive. It will always come out positive. So absolutely positive is how I always remember that. The value is absolutely positive. So the symbol that goes around the number are two straight lines, and you would say the absolute value of -8 is what? What is the distance from that number to 0? And the same with the bottom one. This is just a real world example, -9 degrees Celsius. Again, it would be written like this: absolute value of the temperature. Absolute value of -9 is what? It's not the opposite. A lot of times students will think it's the opposite. It's always positive, absolutely positive, and it is the distance from 0 to that number. So just the distance from that number. And then if you wanted to do the extra credit problems, unfortunately, you had to do those on the checkpoint. Those cannot be corrected. So that's a one-time shot only. So those are not on your reflection piece. All right, good luck to you on your corrections.